Hello all. So today we'll discuss about how do you create an empty business central database, as in like how you want to, if you want to start from scratch as an empty database and then start your implementation on that, how you do that. Because when you install the product, it comes up with a demo database which have already some predefined masters and setup. Surely you can create a company and then delete the Cronus company if required. But back in the NAV days, what you used to do was using the development environment or the classic line, you used to create a new object, new database. And inside that database, we used to import all Microsoft objects from the demo database. And then from there, we used to start building the masters and the setups the way our customer needed it. Now, this video is based on a YouTube comment that I received yesterday. So if you are looking for something which I should be talking about and recording, just put a comment somewhere or directly send me an email and I'll try to record that video if I know about that topic. So now what changed with the Business Central space? In the Business Central, there is no development environment per se is on which you can uh, create a new database. That's the first thing. Then there are no objects because they are part of extensions now. And you need to know the right extension that need to be installed to have all Microsoft objects. So in this video, we'll discuss about the steps how you create a new database without a development environment, and then how or which apps and in which order you need to install the minimum sets of apps that you need to install to have a running business central environment. So what I have right now is a business central 19 at this moment installed locally, which is giving me a demo database like this for Cronus USA, which has some masters and some transactional data for demonstration purposes. At the same time, this is mapped to one of my service tier, which is PC190. As you can see here, this is mapped to demo database PC 19.0. So now let's talk about the first thing, which is creating a new empty database. So as the development environment does not exist, these commands have moved to PowerShell. So if you have to do that, you need to kind of do it from PowerShell. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're running your PowerShell ISC as administrator. Just make sure that you can just search for it as Windows PowerShell ISE. Once you're there, you will import the module based on the version that you are in. If you are on, let's say, Business Central 19, you will choose the Business Central 19. If you are on 17, you will choose 17. If you are in Business Central 20, 21, respectively, you will choose the right version. Then inside that, you get the service folder, and then there is a PS1 file called navadmintool.ps1. So once you have done this, this will load all commands inside this module into your PowerShell, which are these. So now PowerShell understands that. Now to create a new database, nav database specifically, or business central database, the commands are still named as NAV, but there is a command which is new NAV application database. This will create a database for us. So let's see what parameters are there for this. If you are like me, who don't remember the parameters and all, you can always go to the view menu and open show command add on. That way you see this tab on the right. You can just search for that command, click on it, and you get the parameter section on it. Let me zoom this in. You can see it. The first parameter is the database name that you want to provide for it. So let's say our demo PC19. The next mandatory parameter is where you want to store those files. Otherwise, it'll take the default path that is defined during the SQL installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the files in this folder called D drive demo. I'll say store my database files related to this database in this. And then what is the server name where you want to create this database? So I'll say just create it on my local host. So with just these three parameters, which is the database name, the database server, and the location of your database files, it will just directly create the database in your SQL server, in this case, in my local host. Once this execute as it is done here, you can see, you'll see the database server, database name, where the files are, and what's the collation set for that database. So if I open up that folder, I'll see a data file and a log file, which are typically associated with the database. Now, before we move forward, we need to keep one thing in mind. Let me open the browser here. That you should have the exact product DVD, which means exact cumulative update that you have installed and based on which you are creating this database. Because the apps that we'll be installing in later while should match to the platform that's being created. And you can always check it here on help and support and see the version of it. So if you see here, it's a United States Business Central 19.0 with the platform with this version and the application with this version. So you need to be very sure that your service tier and the product DVD that you're using is of the same exact version. So once we have done that, once we have created our database using PowerShell, which is here, now the next thing is to connect this database to a service. So let's do that. For saving time on this video, I'm not going to create a new service and all. You can surely do it. There are articles about it, there are videos about it which I have written in the past. So you can refer those. If you don't know it, just put a comment. I'll direct you to the right article. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the database name on my BC190 service. Save this. Once this gets saved, I will restart the service. So let's go back on the top and just restart the service. So once the service gets restarted, that means my client here behind the scene will no longer be working because the service is restarting. And my database that I just created from PowerShell is now connected to this service. So I know it'll not work, but let's just try to refresh it and see what happens. And there's no company called Kronos USA, so let me change the address. So when I do that, it tells me that there is some objects missing and I cannot query to this database. So the one thing that we missed is to import the license. The next thing that you need to do is import the license. So let's see, NAV license, I guess. Import app server license. You need to give the license file path and the service name. And if I'm not wrong, the service is BC190. Just quickly check that. Yes. And my license is also stored in this folder. So I'll just pick this up. Paste the path here. And run this. So now the license has been imported and it says that you need to restart your service once your license has been uploaded. So let's do that. Once we have done that, we're kind of a stage where the database is ready. As in the database has been created, the service has been mapped, and let's try to refresh this and see if the error message changing. No, it's still there, could not be prepared. So now the next step you would have done in the NAV Word is would have imported the objects in your database. But before you do that, to kind of keep all this in sync, the database that you have created with the service, you will also need to synchronize the environment by using a command called sync nav tenant. So when you do the sync nav tenant, you need to provide the service name, again PC190, and run this. Once you say yes, we'll go ahead and synchronize the tenant. Now I'm hoping that there will be a different message in the client when I try to access this. It's picking it from cache. It's not correct, so let's wait for it. Now it says there is no company in the database. So to open the client, you need to have a company there. And unless you don't have a company there, you can't actually proceed on that. But for creating a company, you need to have objects in the database, as we all know from the NAD environment. So now let's talk about the objects. The minimum set of objects that you need is your system application. And why that's a minimum set of objects? Because it contains the system objects that are required for any uh, business central database. And let's talk about how you find that. So as I said earlier, you need to have the exact product DVD. And inside the product DVD, there is actually a folder called application. So once you are in the application folder, you actually see all the apps that are part of that exact version and that cumulative update. So the minimum application that you need, it's called system application. So this should be the first app that you should be publishing, synchronizing, and installing in your environment. So let's go in there. There's a source folder, and inside that, if you notice, there is this app file called Microsoft System Application.app. Copy the path of that app, and let's go back to PowerShell and do a publish nav app. When you do a publish nav app, you need to choose the option server instance, then you need to provide the path of that app file, then the service name, which is PC190, and then that's it. You can just copy it because we'll be doing multiple apps that are needed. So I'll just copy it so that we don't have to repeat it again. Then the next command, once it gets published, would be synchronizing this app. So once you are on sync nav app, you need to provide the name of the app, which in this case is the app name is always followed by the publisher name, the system application, and then the service name is PC190. Anything else? I don't think so. So let's do that here, paste it in here. And the third and the last command is to install that nav app. Okay, name is system application and PC190. So these are the three commands that you in any case need while installing a new app in your business central environment, which is publishing the new app, then synchronizing that app, and then installing that app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these three and doing this white and green, which is run selection. What it will do, it will publish, sync, and install the system application on my newly created database. Now, as I said, is the minimum set that you need to kind of start. Once all that happens, we'll try to refresh our environment, and I'm hoping it still say that the company does not exist because a database cannot operate without a company. You can't open a client without a company. So let's wait for this and get this published, sync and installed so that we can move ahead from this. Okay, Taking some time. Let's wait for it. Okay. So all three steps are completed. As you can see the tab here. Let's go back to client and see what happens. I'm hoping it still says that the company is not found in the database, which is the same. So now the next step that we want to do is create a new company in the database. So for that, there is again a command available called new nav company. In that, you need to provide the company name. Just let's say uh, Prod is my company name, and the service name is BC 190, and the display name that I want to use is production. Once you have done that, let's run it, and the new company is created with the name as Prod. So now let's go back and try connecting to it. Client. Now we have the company. Now we have the bare minimum set of objects that needed. So let's see what happens when this tab gets refreshed. So now it understands that it's a production company. As you can see here is the printer name. If you see from my settings, I'm hoping you should be able to see the company name, which is the production here. So now the company is created, but the system application does not contain all the objects that you need. The application objects that you need, like your customer table, your customer pages, sales header, purchase lines, and all those things are not yet available because they are part of something called as base app from Microsoft. So that becomes a second app that we need to do to follow the same three set of step with the base app. Again, same step, go to the source folder, find out the app, which is Microsoft base application, do a copy path, and I'll just replace it here rather than creating it from the beginning. Okay, and then I'll replace the sync and the install commands for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the publish. So wherever your cursor is, that line is considered as selected. Since I do a publish, I'll start publishing that app into my new database, because that's what is mapped to my BC 190 service. Now, as of today, the base app is one of the biggest app that's available in the DVD. So it'll take a little bit of time to kind of get published and synchronize and install. So let's wait for it once the publishing is done, and then we'll do the synchronization of it. As the base app has been published, what I'll do now is I'll do the sync and install together. But as I said earlier, the base app is one of the biggest app at this moment in the business central space. It will take a while. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video and resume it as these gets installed, and then we'll take it forward from there. Okay. So the synchronization of app and the installation of the base app is completed now. So now let's go back to our client and see what we can see. Refresh this. So when I refresh this now, it should show me company. Let me refresh this. So now if you see, because there are no profiles, because we created an empty company, you don't see a profile, but everything else is there. You have your customer page, your vendor application, and anything other for that matter. You'll have to start setting it up, but the whole application is accessible now. You can go to all the menu, you can navigate things around, you can set up your journalism setups and all. But this gives you the minimum set of apps that you need to start a business central environment. So now if you look at it on the extension management, you will see that as of this moment, there are only two apps. One is the base app that we just published, and before that, we did publish the system application. If you look into something called as table info, what you'll see is all the tables that are available based on these two tables. Now, there are some records that you see based on these are the default data that kind of gets loaded. You have user setup and all. And this kind of comes based on the install code unit, which are part of the extension, which you can't, which is part of that. But all your tables are there, all your pages are there, everything is there that you needed on an empty business central environment. Okay, so what else after that? The another important extension that you need to install for your developers is something called as an application extension. Let's come back here and look at the application extension. Now, if you don't know about it, when developers start working on an environment, um, I don't remember the exact version, but starting one of the version, you don't have to specify the dependency to the base and the system app directly or explicitly. If you just define the application and the platform version in your app.json, and that magic actually happens based on the Microsoft application because it automatically takes a dependency on the base and system app. So for developers, you will have to make sure that you have this app installed so that they can create their extensions easily. So this would be the last minimum set of app that you need, and we'll talk about others in a while. So I'll change it here to application and also this as application. So once this is there, you can just do all of them together and run through it. And it quickly gets installed because technically speaking, there is nothing on that app. It's just a dependency on both the apps. So let me go into extension management and you'll see all the three apps that we just installed. Now, other than these three apps which we just installed, the system application, the base app, and the application app, all other apps are up to you based on what features you need. I would recommend if your customer would like to, or even if would not like to explore APIs at this point, to install APIs, it always makes sense to have these apps. Um, Company Hub, Data Archive. If your customer would like to archive some data, then you need the separate app called Data Archive. These are around the new email modules, so you can install all these apps. Business headings that shows you heading on your role center page. App for that. Do install the permission app because starting Business Central 18, Microsoft have given an option to either use permission as data or permission as an object. But in future releases, permission as data will no longer be supported. So start shifting your customer, or if you're implementing, start using permission from apps. You're not on App Store, so you don't need recommended app, but you can use the sales inventory forecast if your customer is into it. You can install all these apps that you need, but the minimum set that we have talked about in today's video is the system application, the base app, and the application in the same order. So that's the minimum set of apps that you need, and that will give you a blank, empty environment on Business Central. So hope that solves the question that somebody asked in YouTube comment. Let me know your views about this video into the comments. And if you have any other thoughts, what I should be talking about next, just add that into the comment section. If you're watching this and you are still here, do subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because most of the people who are watching it are not subscribed to the channel, and you miss out some updates when I post new videos. And it kind of acts as a motivation for the publisher when he sees the subscriber being growing on the channel. So stay connected. I'll come up with the next video pretty soon and we'll talk about it. Thank you. Have a nice day.